Hello. I got a lot of complaints about the camera angle for my previous video. So, is this angle all right? I hope it is. Um, I have been reading in the papers that a lot of people have been spending their time in self-isolation, uploading readings from poetry. So, I thought that today I'm going to talk a little bit about poetry, the way in which I think about poetry, and what I think poetry is. And then maybe after that, I could read a poem which I think in some ways sort of defines the way in which I think about poetry. So many of you may already know about this particular poet. He's a British poet. He's young, he's alive, and he writes the most astonishing poetry. So those of you who aren't aware of him, this is going to be an opportunity for me to introduce you to Andrew Macmillan. Yeah. So Andrew Macmillan has got two books of poetry out. One is called Physical. I also have that with me. Um, Physical, which came out. Wait, let me check. Physical came out in 2015, and the book that I'm going to read from today, which is Playtime, that came out in 2018. So it is going to be from Playtime that I shall be reading a poem today. Many people, and especially students, often send me poems that they have written, and 9 times out of 10, I know what those poems are going to be about: sadness. Because we find it impossible to write poems about anything else, mysteriously. So a lot of people get spurred on to writing poetry only when they're sad, which I think is very sad. Because poetry should not be only about you complaining about how the world is unfair and how the world mistreats you. I was actually having a conversation with with a friend of mine yesterday, or was it the day before? And we were talking about poetry, and he asked me. He said, "Do you recite?" And I said, "Yeah, well, no, I don't think I recite." And he says, "Oh, I recite." So I said, "Well, that's very good. In that case, why don't you send me an audio clip of your recitation?" And of course, he did very very promptly. And that recitation was accompanied by a solitary flute playing, and the poem was about how women are raped, and women are molested, and how horrible life is. And I said, is this all the poetry that you read? And he said, well, yeah. So I said, don't you know of any poem that does not deal with sadness? Don't you know of any poem that does not deal with either a heartbreak, or about, I hate the world, or about heartbreak? Don't you know of anybody who has written poems that are not about these things? And he said, well, I haven't. So I said, okay. So then I promised him that I would be sending him a clip of poetry that isn't about sadness, and that isn't about how the world mistreats you. This is a poem. I personally think that this poem that I'm going to read, I think it's about poetry. I think this is about poetry because very often people ask me, how do you define poetry? And I say, I define poetry because by saying that I think about the poet in particular, but anybody who practices literature in general, I think about a poet as a gym trainer. I think about somebody who does literature, who creates literature as a gym trainer. So if somebody is a gym trainer, what are they doing? Well, they are actually trying to train the language to do the stuff that the language hasn't done before. So the job of the gym trainer is to push language where language doesn't usually go. So you can think of the gym trainer as being this horrible, slave driver. Yes, but the slave driver is somebody who is also making your body do things that your body hadn't done before. So all the pain and all the hardship that the gym trainer is putting you through is doing it so that your body can accomplish the tasks that your body did not know it could. So I think of a poet as a gym trainer, and what the gym trainer is doing is it's training the language, and which is why I thought it is rather wonderful that this poem that Andrew Macmillan writes is called Personal Trainer. So here is the poem. Personal Trainer. Remember, first the body must be bruised so it can heal itself stronger. Tense your stomach. I'm going to punch you as though you were a weight bag. I'll hit your sleeping abdominals, force them awake. I will punch you. Though I know you've never been punched before. Smacked, yes, on your wrist or your ass to reprimand you as a child, but never someone wanting to hurt you. I will punch you so your body grows more resilient, so it learns the center of its own gravity. I will punch you until you go slack, and then I'll send you home in the morning. You will ache. You will feel as though you have been trodden on. Standing or sitting will require you to fold yourself like a hinge. Your muscles will not yet be ready to be stretched. This will last for days, until you're ready to be punched again. It is in this way I will build you, your abs screwing tighter every week, holding themselves closer to the surface of the skin, like the knuckles of a fist which is being clenched and pushed forwards. That's the poem. So what I felt that Andrew Macmillan is trying to do really is about how the poet is forcing the language, hurting the language, but hurting the language for its own good, to make the language stronger. So therefore, those of us who practice poetry, who read poetry, who write poetry, who enjoy poetry, that is what they understand. That is what they are basically trying to appreciate and enjoy, which is how to make the language stronger. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you want me to read more poetry, if you want me to talk more about poetry, or indeed if you want me to talk about anything else, do leave a message and I will see what I can do. Thank you.